A why is a tough thing to come by. A lot of the time as we go through these journeys of self-development, we do tend to focus on the practicalities of where we're going and try and use our rational brains to reason out what would be the best direction for us to take in life. And perhaps sometimes that's why finding a why, as gets talked about a lot in personal development, can be a struggle. But maybe the trick to finding a why isn't trying to reason it out. Maybe it's accepting, in the words of Mark Manson, that the feeling brain is in the driving seat of the consciousness car and listening to it before you then try and build the rational stuff around it. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Equal First podcast. I'm Rob, your host, and I want this show to help you treat yourself like a human being worth caring for so that you can show up fully for the people around you. I would very much appreciate it if you could give this episode a like and also subscribe to the show itself so that you get updates whenever I publish a new episode. Now, finding a why is something that gets bandied around a lot nowadays. Whys can give you direction, but I still catch myself making choices out of fear and scarcity. I have made some bold moves of recent, moving from Cairns to Sydney, moving from the Blue Mountains to Sydney Southwest, but I'm finding that as I start to make the next changes in my life, they do need to be, as I might have mentioned in a prior episode, made slowly and more step by step and without as much immediate reward in terms of noticeable change. And keeping on with all of that, especially when I'm not 100% sure where I'm going yet, can be a bit of a struggle. I know that there can be a fear that drives me in terms of wanting to make sure that I am shoring up my future, that I have enough cash to last me into retirement, and that I'm not just, and maybe this is a point of pride, relying on bequests from elder relatives as they pass away to make sure that I have a good future. But there is still that struggle as I move into things like career development of, well, if I am going to be making some sort of career or job change, how do I make sure that not only am I earning a better dollar, but I'm also evaluating where I'm going in terms of what that means to me? And yes, it's not just the generations below Generation X or the elder millennials, which I believe I fit into, that are looking for more meaning in their working lives. I guess as a lot of people talk about how we evolved with communities that were based on survival, so immediate meaning was obvious, but as we've started to evolve into these more distributed and more, at least in a sense of immediate survival wise, safer societies, that question of, well, what impact, a word that again gets used a lot and that I feel perhaps gets a little bit overrated and ill-defined, what impact we have and what sort of meaning or value that we bring to other people's lives, that we're not just collecting a paycheck, we're getting some sort of sense of satisfaction out of the work we're doing, and that it's actually bringing assistance and meaning to other people's lives. But yeah, that is still kind of a broad thing, and it is a struggle when you start looking at, okay, when the world could potentially be one's oyster, how does one narrow things down? Especially when you're kind of getting into this later stage of life, like myself as I approach 50, and feeling like I have less time to experiment or leap careers and go, maybe that doesn't work, let's try another one. Again, a little bit of that fear and lack mentality that creeps in, but it is something that I have struggled with as I have started looking around as to what is available out there. I've always had this feeling like there is something more that I need to have. With a decision that I need to have made that will narrow options down to something that does mean something to me. And I've always felt this emotional struggle like after I've engaged my career coach and done some of the initial homework and had a few career options and started going, all right, I need to do some investigation and find out what these jobs are like and whether or not they would suit me and I would suit them. When I have looked at the options that the various surveys that have done have said I seem to line up with, there has been this other bit of me that is going, but I still need something else in order to pick from this list, but I'm not sure what it is. I've heard again about this topic of needing a why, and I even bought that lovely chap Simon Sinek's book, It Starts With Why. Seriously, go check out his podcast, A Bit of Optimism, and I actually find while he's done a few TED Talks, I do prefer, even when he goes on other people's podcasts and chats with people, that's where we get to find out a little bit more about where he's at and what he's driving him, and he can talk a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more conversationally about everything that's behind this It Starts With Why concept. And I tried reading the book, but I found it had a corporate focus that had me struggling to apply its lessons personally. I guess even though a corporate why is in the end a personal why, it just felt like the people that he talked about and the whys that they found didn't quite line up with me. I didn't see how they got to those whys. I didn't see the process that they sat through, I suppose. And I think in the end, what I just really needed to do was sit and think and journal and give my brain space to perhaps relax a little bit and do whatever background processing in my subconscious that it needed to without my conscious brain trying to drive for or ram through an answer. So I can't really tell you how I got to my why beyond that. So all I can really advocate is just try and make some time for yourself to get some quiet and sit and journal and let all the stuff that's going in your head out through either your mouth or your pen or your keyboard until all the guff is cleared away and you finally hit something that not just makes sense up here, but locks in here. That when people talk about embodiment, just this sensation within the rest of you, outside of your brain. Maybe it's a kind of relief, I think, that you found something that makes sense, and also that sense of excitement of like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Now I know what my next steps are, or now I see the options that line up with me. And the why that I came to was a very emotional one in some ways. It was how I wanted the doing of my job to make me feel. And the feeling I want is to be proud of people. I want to see people come in to a thing that I am doing for them, and over time realize not just that they are learning skills, but those skills that they have learned have either made them more capable than they were at the start of the process, or also, and perhaps more importantly, that they've realized that they were capable all along. And that realizing of that gives them the confidence to then, after they've done with me, step out into life and be able to take on bigger and better and more meaningful challenges themselves. And they say that a leader's purpose is not to get congratulation for the leader's work, but for the people that the leader is leading to look at themselves and say, we did this. Because the leader doesn't do the work for the people. The leader helps them realize how they can do the work themselves. So the leader isn't in it for the leader's own gratification directly, or to get praise or recognition for doing that work. A leader is in the business, for want of a better word, of leadership, so that the people he is leading, I keep thinking of one of my favorite authors, Spider Robinson. I can't remember the name of the short story, but it's one about the twin brothers, Jim and Paul McDonald, who are trying to solve a common problem of uncontrolled telepathy. And the lads at Callahan's Bar help them contact each other across a long distance. And the narrator, Jake, explains how the process is like. We can't really explain it, but the closest metaphor he has is when he and everyone else in Callahan's Bar, in some ways, is metaphorically, they're all trying to push a truck out of a ditch while it tries to turn its engine over. And that there came a point in what they were doing that all of a sudden the engine turned over and it rushed ahead and left them all behind. And the truck that they were pushing was one of the McDonald brothers. And it's that idea, and another one that leaps to mind is the somewhat maligned Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi, which, I'll face it, did have a lot of faults, but I think there was a ton of good in there that a lot of people overlook. And one of my favorite moments out of that is when the ghost of Yoda returns to Luke Skywalker, and they sit together and Yoda says, "We are what they grow beyond. That is the burden of all masters." So I guess that's what I would really like to see in life. I would like to know that I helped, but in the end, I would like to be proud of the people I helped and see them becoming what they become. And knowing, I guess, in Louis Armstrong's words, they'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I'll think to myself, what a wonderful world. So yeah, and it's kind of scary having this why, because it does give my options some direction, including some ones that I thought, nah, I don't want to do that. I can't see myself doing that. Why would I want to do that? And now it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I do want to do that. And maybe it will mean a half a year to a year of part-time study just to help me get what I need to do to be able to do that. We will see. Will that why change? And I think it's the emotional why that I needed over the rational one that perhaps wouldn't have in the end helped me. Will that why eventually change? Well, maybe, but I think it will do for now. And sometimes if we worry about the future too much, it's just going to rob us of our agency in the present. So I guess I will press on with that, and maybe I will talk about it more in future episodes. And I think that's what I hope this Equal First podcast will do for you folks who are watching or listening, that you will take what you find in these episodes and apply it in ways that I would not have expected and might not understand, but that will help you be better, more capable, more contented, and more strong people who have that excess time and capacity and even money to help other people in the stuff that they're going through and give them what they need. So yeah, I guess, how have you struggled in terms of what I would like to ask you folks? So please, I would love to read your feedback. I would love to hear from you. If you are watching this on YouTube, please put a comment down below in the comments section. How have you struggled to identify a motivating why in your life? What was a why that you found? And perhaps, how have your whys either changed or also a why that you found and stuck with deepened over time? How did it get more rich and more true for you than it was for you when you first identified it? Anyway, after all that, thank you very much for watching along in this episode. Please share it with someone you think could use it. And if you'd like another episode, please stick around a few moments and you will get one recommended at the end title card. Have a good time in the meantime, and please, whether to yourself or to others, be kind.